lot of tensions that current as last year. So we might have a statement this year. I mean, the big issue is how expensive it's going to be. Is it only going to say, yes, we stand in for free and open markets against protectionism, and we want to collaborate on climate, and we want to maintain the Iran deal? Nice. But it's the question then would be, so what? So the real issue is whether we make substantial progress on some of the contentious issues, including reciprocity and others.
Yes. So about the China's diplomacy, foreign relations strategy shift, we have noticed a shift since President Xi took office. And one change is that the decision making in the foreign policy is much higher level. So what is your observation? So during the EU-China relationship, from your observation, who is now really in the power, who represent China for EU? Because in America, U.S.-China dialogues, we see it is not the foreign affairs department; it's someone else. So who represents China when talking to Europe? Do you think?
Well, that's a very important question, and I think, I'm honestly expecting some clarification on that during the course of the next 8 weeks or 12 weeks, because we didn't have a major. So Wang Yi was in Germany just a few weeks ago, last week I think. Wang Qishan was in Russia, so he was not in Europe. So I personally still think that this is this will not be massively affected by the restructuring in the foreign policy apparatus of the new commission, the change of leading small group, and I don't know what happened to the international department. I wanted to ask you about that. But so I think it's fundamentally still a Ministry of Foreign Affairs driven process for that part.
Yes.
The European Department, but I honestly cannot tell you, and I'm very much looking forward to more clarification on that. So.
Yes.
If you can tell me what you think, I would be really glad.
Because it's very apparent in the U.S.-China relationship, because you could say the delegation team member, but for Europe it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, I don't expect you to come to Brussels, I mean, it's a different situation.
Yes. And so, because, this strategy changed a lot, from Deng Xiaoping's, maybe hide our talents, and now she's new things. So we'll expect, I don't mean to turn around, but just some retreat, some coming back after this time's disputes with U.S. Because now people start criticizing that China maybe have a too higher tone in the international stage, and now we have some troubles. So do you think that China maybe will go back a little after this kind of disputes? Or actually they will, maybe go further and say, okay, we will change the world, we will change the international order. In which direction do you think China will go?
Well, that's a very important question again, and it's a good question. So, I fully agree with your assessment that we have seen a major strategic shift in foreign policy making, and the ambitions and the clarity and the steps that have been undertaken in terms of the relevance of foreign policy and foreign security policy in particular for the Chinese leadership, and also the time horizons for solving certain questions or making progress on certain questions has shifted, at least that's my sense. In general, my expectation is that as much as they can in terms of resources and other issues, including pushback, they will actually double down on the current approach. So I don't think, we have just seen this institutional change, right? I mean, in terms of upgrading the MFA, more power to Wang Qishan for Vice President for Foreign Affairs minutes. We have an increasing in the budget. We have, a greater seniority in terms of where foreign policy people are located in the partner hierarchy. So this has just happened a few months ago. So the expectation would be this we'll only see the effects of this playing out in the next years, right? what has been formulated at the 19th Party Congress, etc. Of course, this is rhetoric, and it's important for a domestic audience. But I think the background of this, of course, returning to greater glory and regional dominance until a certain time period. And I mean, if you look at the official statements, which are careful and propaganda and difficult to understand sometimes. So just to give you one example, at the Singapore Shangri-La dialogue last weekend, Senior Colonel Joe Bohr of the PLA, the spokesperson of the international outreach, basically from them, was asked, so what's China's contribution to shaping international order? And Hu Ying has been saying the same things over the course of the past years. They clearly say we are dissatisfied with the current structure of the international order, and it's going to be a struggle by the Chinese to make sure to change this international order in ways that suit our own interests. So this is nothing that's hidden. It's a question of capacity, capabilities, and how much others will accept this and not push back or even fight against it. But I think in terms of ambitions and putting the resources in place, there's a very clear trajectory that something needs really to change. What needs to change? Alliance structures in the region, slowly.
Yes.
So the relevance of the U.S. alliance system in East Asia is clearly a factor where the Chinese are highly dissatisfied with, which doesn't mean that they're going to be able and willing to push, they're not expecting this is going to change until 2025 or 2030 even. But of course they're going to make countermeasures, counter-proposals, new institutions, new partnerships, and investing a lot in making sure that they have a different model in place at one point in time. The same goes for, China's role in global institutions or China's role in terms of, shifting from what we currently see, a pattern where, most of the countries in the region are economically highly dependent or interdependent with China, but security-wise on a different track. And it's been clearly formulated that the Chinese leadership wants to change that. So a closer alignment of economic patterns with security patterns in the region. So, I don't expect that I don't see a reason apart from, a domestic crisis, which I don't expect, a massive pushback from in the international community, which will happen partly, but the question is to what extent. I don't see why, they would pull back or tone down.
Yes. And you just talk about the phrases or the trajectories talking by the Chinese officials, and they create concepts like the community of shared future for mankind, and in the new type of international relations. So what is your understanding of them? Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to understand this kind of concepts. I want to know, what is your understanding to see if there is a gap between our two sides in this complex phrases.
So I don't want to be quoted on my answer.
Just
to clarify this. It's just totally counterproductive by the Chinese leadership to do such kind of things. I mean, the community of shared destiny or whatever for future mankind, it simply doesn't work. So I don't know where internally someone thinks that this has an effect on the international community that is beneficial. I think it might have a certain type of rhetorical function, mainly for some Asian partners who somewhat think differently in terms of, you need a overarching framework of thinking and language that helps you, to project a sense of community, etc. But, there's a lot of work that needs to be done by the Chinese to develop concepts and, ideas that work internationally. It's just not working. Even Wang Yi, when he was, he had to, explicate the key ideas of Xi Jinping foreign policy. I don't know when this was, a few months ago. And then he basically said, the community of shared destiny is a goal. Well, thank you. I understand that, but what exactly do you mean by that? there seems to be an urge by the Chinese side, the leadership, Beijing, Zhou Enlai, whoever, Wang Honing probably, to win the battle for hearts and minds internationally. So that's the soft power idea. We need to have our own concepts. We have to shape the discourse, etc. But it's not being very effective currently.
Do you think it's generally perceived in Europe? So by these two concepts, like you just said. I mean, are there any is that a general view in Europe that these two concepts, or the concept created by China, is almost a failure? Can I say that? Yeah.
Sorry, it's so difficult to understand because of the connection. So when
okay, I mean, what you just said is, do you think it's a personal view, or do you feel it's a general view held by many people in Europe?
Again, if you don't quote me on that,
I don't quote you. I just want to know. Yeah.
It's just, I think it's a very widely shared perception.
Yeah, understand. Okay, so now
it's actually really counterproductive, because there's the gap between the rhetoric and the actions is so big that it doesn't really help. But I understand as also a cultural difference. So, for instance, my understanding is always of Chinese foreign policy that you need this overarching framework and narrative. For instance, the Chinese are talking with the Germans about, we are civilizational powers. So that's why we have today's, it's a special partnership that we... Yes, this might be, and we have, we are grounded in deep cultural roots, and you have Hegel and Beethoven, and we have X and Y, and yeah, but we tend to prefer to talk about our current problems, and it's just a question of, also, I think cultural factors in how you start or engage in relationships, in a sense.
Yes, but do you think this rhetoric will, get some echoes or renaissance in some, maybe Belt and Road countries, like some developing countries?
Yes, I do think so. That it has certainly much more effect on those, and I'm very convinced that the Chinese Beijing will improve, and will become smarter in devising rhetorical strategies and creating new narratives, and because of course they're learning very quickly and get a lot of exposure and feedback on this. So yes, I'm pretty convinced that this will have an effect and will be much more important in the future.
Yes. Okay, so last question. The last question is about the metrics. Because that Global Times used to attack your tech metrics. I don't know if you read the report, saying that you're not accepting the interview from Chinese official media. I don't know.
Sorry. Just a quick question. I have someone else here in the room who I need to talk to. Just 30 seconds, maybe. I will be back.
Okay. No problem. Yes, I only have last question.
Sorry, it's just too late here, so people are cleaning the offices and we need to make sure that I have the space.
Just last question.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, just last question about metrics. So the Global Times, I don't know if the Chinese official media have once attacked you for not accepting the official Chinese official media's interview. I don't know if you read the report. So do you think this is a problem that not only Global Times, but many Chinese official media were criticizing you that you're not hearing voices from other side. You just want to publish something that criticizes China. Do you think it's a problem or not?
Well, we can have a long discussion about that. So there's different aspects to it. So first of all, we wear criticism by Global Times as a badge of honor, honestly. So if they're thinking and telling us we're misguided academics, they're very welcome. We simply don't care about it. But we understand the Global Times also as a function of a broader discourse in the Chinese system, and of course we care about that, and we care about good journalism and excellent, perspectives that we see from different outlets, and we want to engage with that. There's one fundamental issue that we have with public media official media, party state media, which is, I mean, there's a broad issue and a more technical issue. The more technical issue is interviews will be regularly distorted, misquoted, and simply misused for purposes that are outrageous.
Yes.
So, and as long as this is the case, or we're not sure that this is not the case, we simply need to be very careful. Because if we are being quoted or misquoted or, used for certain political purposes in the Chinese domestic system, that's simply nothing that we can accept and tolerate. So we need to be careful with that. So it's very straightforward.
Yes.
The broader issue is, of course, if the Chinese party system clearly states that all media is Xindan, then that's fine, but we don't have to accept it. We don't want to be, part of that system in a sense.
Yes.
It's very clear. We appreciate free press and, a separate function of the press from party functions. But then finally, I think, and most people don't understand this, but our work is not, primarily geared towards engaging a Chinese audience. It's just, our task is very clear. We need to inform European and German public about China. So, and that's our core mission. And if we want to fulfill our mission, we have limited resources. And I can tell you, we have hundreds of interview requests, weekly. So we need to make choices and set priorities, and Caixin certainly is among the priorities, so I can be very clear about this. But it's just a question of resources also,
Yes.
So I'm very much, I'm curious to hear how you, whether you find it very bad from us that we don't do this, or what you think about it, but that's how we see it, I think.
Sorry? I didn't very hear it.
I'm very interested to understand very interested also to understand your perspective, whether you think our institute is too critical, or whether our media strategy is wrong. Because,
from my personal perspective, I really appreciate what you're doing, because my own political opinions. But just I will talk with also maybe Chinese scholars, and they will have this kind of thing that. It's just different perspectives. If they, if for Chinese scholars, for Chinese officials, then they will say also for those developed countries, who will, I think they will not maybe gain many benefits in this, what they say as a developed countries-led world, and they want to, better, they want a better world order for them. But for me, that is not a better world. But it's just depending on what places sit on, because. These countries, yes. But my personal political perspective, I'm from, because I'm actually aware of Hong Kong media, but we cannot, escape control by the government. So
Phoenix Yifeng, others. I mean, still you. I think there's our census, and that's why we accept that. Also, this interview is just we tend to trust in your processes. So we tend to think that you will, if we say, for instance, if you send us the quotes that you will use, or that first you will send us quotes for usage. We just, we expect this to happen, and we will test it each time whether it happens or not. And then if you say something where we think, that's a bit distorted, then we expect a reaction. And as long as this is happening, I think we are fine.
Okay, I understand. I will give you the quotes before we publish. Thank you very much for.
And even sometimes, and then the other issue is, as the longer we make these interviews, and if we will be in contact 10 times, then we'll stop asking for getting those quotes in advance, because we simply trust you will do it well. So
Yes, that's very good. Yes, and really also very thank you, for your. I think it's appreciation of our media that you believe in us, that we will not distort.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Really, thank you. And I think, I heard, I could feel that you were tired. Maybe just get some sleep, and I will let you know what course we will use and when will be published by email. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, just
Thank
have a good
you.
rest.
So thanks a lot. Again, apologies for the delay.
No, doesn't matter.
I hope it was useful, and then I look forward to further contact. All right.
Yes. Do you come to China very often?
Excuse me?
Do you come to China very often? I mean.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Yes. Okay.
I have young children, so I need to limit my time away, but as much as possible, absolutely.
Okay. So next time, if you come to China, we could maybe, if I get a chance, we could meet in person. Yeah.
Perfect. That would
Just
be really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.